Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Supporting Women in Science Conference, organized by the Institute for Global Health and Development, IGHD, at the Aachen University. We kindly request all the guests to take their seats as we will begin shortly. Thank you for joining us today as we celebrate and advance the celebrate and we celebrate and the role of women in science leadership and research across Pakistan. There's one request, please to keep your phone silent so that there is no disturbance in the conference. Thank you. We are honored to welcome our chief guest for this inaugural session, Mr. Sultan Ali Alana. He is the chairman of Habib Bank Limited, Pakistan. Please join me in extending a warm welcome. To commence the proceedings, we will begin with the recitation from the Holy Quran.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم اقرأ باسم ربك الذي خلق خلق الإنسان من علق اقرأ وربك الأكرم الذي علم بالقلم علم الإنسان ما لم يعلم. Allah's name to commence with, the most gracious, the most merciful. Read with the name of your Lord who created. He created human beings from a clot of blood. Read, and only your Lord is the most generous, the one who taught to write with the pen, the one who taught men what he knew not. Sadaqallahul Aliyyul Azim.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, it is now my privilege to invite Dr. Zulfikar Bhutta to the stage to deliver the welcome address and outline the objectives of this seminar. Dr. Bhutta is a distinguished academic and renowned global health expert. He serves as a distinguished university professor and founding director of Institute of Global Health and Development and the Center of Excellence in Women and Child Health at the Aachen University. Additionally, he holds the Robert Harding Inaugural Chair in Global Child Health at the Hospital for Sick Children in Toronto and is co-director for the Sick Kids Center for Global Child Health. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Bhutta to the stage.
Thank you very much, Ms. Lana, our chief guest, President Suleiman Shahabuddin, Professor Tania Bubla, Provost AKU, Dr. Salim Warani, Vice Provost, and Anjum Halai, our Vice Provost, Deans from the School of Nursing and Midwifery and Medical College. I could go on and on. There's so many distinguished luminaries here. This is fantastic that we were able to assemble all of you. But this conference belongs to the people in the audience. Many of the Women in Science Fellows who are today at a happy stage, having gone through their progression in cohorts 1 and 2. I've had an opportunity of briefing our chief guest just before arriving here, so I'm not going to bore you with the details of the program. You will have an opportunity to hear some of those tomorrow. But just to say, we began this program a few years ago, 3 years ago exactly, to bridge the gap, the equity gap in early career researchers for women in Pakistan at various levels. And as I've already talked about, this is recognized as a leaky pipeline because although there is a reasonably large proportion of women in our medical schools and our related programs in the universities, the attrition between the undergraduate, master's, and higher educational programs like PhD is enormous. In fact, it has been called a precipitous cliff through which many scholars drop. And there are many reasons for it. Some are structural, some are social cultural. It is very difficult in an environment like ours for a woman, a young woman in particular, with family responsibilities and a range of other considerations to have the same opportunities as men in their careers. The concepts of career breaks, the concepts of a family-friendly, flexible schedule does not exist. And therefore, it's not a big surprise that if you look overall at the statistics in Pakistan, if you take our higher centers of learning, the proportion of women who are in leadership positions is minuscule. I'm a long-time member of the Pakistan Academy of Sciences. We lament the situation that only 10% of the fellows of the Pakistan Academy of Sciences are women, and very few under 40 years of age. And is that because the pipeline does not exist? It's because the pipeline exists, but there are structural barriers to this. To overcome that program and the related difficulties, we began this exercise 3 years ago to create a positive environment for female scholars to be not only just given resources, but to be mentored, supported, and given that assurance that they could, if they were meritorious, rise up the ranks at the same level as others. Now, time will tell if we succeeded or not. And as our chief guest very rightly points out, that this needs to perhaps start at a very early stage, at a grassroots level. But it isn't a question of an either or. We need to do all, at all levels of support needed, whether it is through the work of the Citizens Foundation in ensuring there are enough girls given that opportunity in our public sector or autonomous schools, to whether we create that opportunity in our higher institutions of learning for women to graduate and to be given the same opportunity and perhaps flexibility so they don't have to sacrifice their family life or motherhood for the sake of their careers. And I can assure you, ladies and gentlemen, that this is not just the case in science. It's also true in other disciplines. We were talking briefly about of management disciplines, arts and sciences, and also perhaps to some extent, you know it much better than I, in other sectors, including things like banking and finance. So this program that you will hear about over the next day and a half is principally a bringing together of all stakeholders. And it's the second of activities that we've held this year, the first one being in Nairobi, for the scholars who have graduated from East Africa in this program. This is focused on Pakistan, and hopefully next year, as we bring this initial phase of the work to an end, you will hear more about this when we bring everybody together. So thank you very much for coming, and without further ado, I would like to invite the MC to the podium to introduce the university president or the provost.
Thank you, Dr. Bhutta. Our next speaker is Dr. Suleiman Shahabuddin, President, Aga Khan University. Dr. Shahabuddin oversees the academic campuses across 3 continents and a healthcare network spanning South and Central Asia and East Africa. With extensive experience in healthcare leadership, he has spearheaded transformative initiatives that have enhanced education and health outcomes. Dr. Shahabuddin is deeply committed to advancing environmental sustainability, leading efforts such as establishment of the Ashura Climate and Environmental Research Center in Tanzania, which focuses on climate science and sustainable land management and ecosystem restoration. Prior to becoming the president, he served as the regional CEO of the Aga Khan Health Services in the East Africa. Earlier this year, he received Sitara Imtiaz, one of the Pakistan's highest civilian honors from the President of Pakistan, for his contributions to health and education. Dr. Shahabuddin is dedicated to integrating environmental stewardship into 8Q's education, research, and healthcare system in alignment with the Global Sustainable Development Goals. Please join me in welcome Dr. Shahabuddin on the stage.
Thank you. Thank you so much for those generous remarks. And every time someone does this, I learn so much new about myself. So that's fantastic. But Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Good evening and Assalamu alaikum to all of you, to everyone in this audience, and I'm sure that people are online as well. So to those who are virtually present or physically present, Assalamu alaikum and a very, very good evening. So let me first of all recognize our chief guest, Mr. Sultan Ali Allana. The MC introduced him as chairman of HBL Habib Bank Limited, but he is much, much, much more than that. He is a very senior leader of the Arakan Development Network. He oversees, an HBL, of course, we know because we're in Pakistan, but he oversees a network of 9 banks in 9 different countries, our financial, our insurance companies, and on and on and on and on. He's also a very strong well-wisher and supporter of the Arakan University. So, and I think his presence underscores the conference theme, which is science thrives when supported by strong, value-driven institutions. And the institutions he runs are strong and value-driven. So when Zulfi reached out to me and he said, can we invite Mr. Allana to be the chief guest for this event? I said, of course, I know him, and I'll be happy to make the call. So I picked up the phone and I said, you know what, can we request you to be the chief guest at this conference? And he said, why me? So at that point, I told him, I said, why don't you just say yes, and we'll explain to you why you at some point. So I'm very grateful to you for accepting that. But the question is an important one, why me? So I think, first of all, as I said, sir, you are a very respected AKDN leader. And your presence shows institutional commitment, AKDN commitment, institutional commitment to this whole discussion of women and science and so on. You are also a very strong champion for women's empowerment and financial inclusion of women. And we know this through the work that you have done across the countries where you operate, across your banks. And I know that today you will speak with us about some of the financial inclusion and how your organization has gone about creating women empowerment. You also realize, and you have a very deep commitment to human development. And you have always said this, that it is human development that will fuel our national progress. So clearly this is another step in that direction. And then in Pakistan, and this is my personal view, and I'm sure many of you will share, you are a voice of pragmatism and vision. You have been grounded in reality, but you have been forward-looking, and you have been advising the right people at the right time on the right issues. So I think on behalf of the university, Mr. Allana, please accept our gratitude. We are extremely grateful to you for your presence. Let me also recognize Dr. Zulfikar Bhutta, our founding director of the Institute of Global Health and Development, for being the chief architect for this program, for this whole conference, and in fact for the program itself. And really, it's your commitment and your leadership, Zulfi, that brings all of us together. And this is yet another feather in your illustrious cap. And I don't know how many feathers you want in your cap, but I think it's fantastic. Let me also recognize our provost, Dr. Tanya Bubela. Thank you, Tanya, for being present today. I should recognize our supporting women in science fellows. It's great to see all of you here, and congratulations on all your accomplishments and achievements to date. I know we have collaborators from the Oxford University and from other institutions, and I welcome all of you. I welcome all the mentors, conference participants, colleagues, and all our women scientists. So today, ladies and gentlemen, is a very, very proud moment for the Arakan University. Enabling women into developing pioneering researchers and outstanding leaders has always been the highest priority for the Arakan University. So the fact that supporting women in science initiatives has helped scores and scores of early and mid-career women to develop their research skills and pursue important scientific projects matters profoundly to the university. It matters profoundly to me, and I know that it matters profoundly to all of you. I'm grateful to Dr. Bhutta and the project team at AKU, our collaborators at the University of Oxford, the Gates Foundation, and other partners who all have mentored and supported the 84 fellows who have participated in this program here in Pakistan and in East Africa. And I'm grateful to the fellows for all their hard work. You have gone beyond the call of duty. You have gone beyond your personal and your professional commitments. And you have involved yourself with all the enthusiasm, and you've put in time and energy. And I'm so grateful. So thank you very much to all our fellows and to everyone. So what do I see when I look at our fellows? I see the future of health research. And when I think about the senior women faculty and leaders in this room today, I'm reminded of two things. First and foremost, the fact that the Aga Khan University could not have been the university it is today without its female scientists. And secondly, the fact that our women faculty and scientists have been and continue to be trailblazers in Pakistan. We are, ladies and gentlemen, at a point where science today is more important than ever. Pakistan and countries like Pakistan need to build their scientific capacity to address the challenges of environment, of major health issues. And we need to build scientific capacity to compete in the global economy. In fact, a couple of days back, I was in Islamabad and I was attending a board meeting of the Jinnah Medical Research Center, which is our Prime Minister's pet project these days. And I sit on the board. And again, when my turn came to speak, I said, we are building this facility, and everyone is focused on healthcare and healthcare delivery. And I said, we must ensure that this facility becomes a catalyst for research and for scholarly activities. And that's what's needed. So if we want to see Pakistan become a research powerhouse, a knowledge powerhouse, then we can't do it with our hands tied to our backs. We need women to be at the forefront of science and academic leadership. And while this conference is of science and academic leadership, and we are speaking in that context, but we want women to be the forefront of everything, whether it's management, whether it's technical skills, whether it's anything else. Our late Highness, the founding chancellor of this university, he said, there is neither democracy nor meritocracy. And let me repeat that. There is neither democracy nor meritocracy in a society that excludes half of its members. Unfortunately, across the globe and in Pakistan to some extent, to a large extent, we are not where we would like to be. Globally, just 1 in 3 researchers is a woman. If you look at lower middle income countries as a whole, they have almost half of the global population, but they produce just one out of every 10 scientific publication worldwide. And they're responsible for only 4% of the global R&D spending. In fact, and I'm sad to say, that here in Pakistan, research and development spending as a percentage of GDP has actually been declining. Initiatives like supporting women in science are essential if we want to change this situation. They're essential if we want to see equality of opportunity, meritocracy in our universities and across our society. But we also need to recognize that science has a glass ceiling. This is not just a problem of Pakistan or the developing world. It's a global challenge. It's a global problem. In the European Union, women are half of doctoral students or junior researchers, but just a quarter of full professors or research directors. And this is what Zulfi, you alluded to. There is a very interesting study from New Zealand, a country which is generally known as one of the most gender balances, gender equal places on earth. New Zealand assesses the research performance of every academic in the country using a common metric. The study looked at men and women with the same research scores of the same age working in the same field. It found that men were more than twice as likely as the women to become full professors or associate professors. And while I'm going on and on about women, I must say that men are extremely important, and they are. But the global challenge is that a large percentage of our women folk have not been able to seize all the opportunities, and we have not provided the enabling environment. So clearly there is bad news, but there's also good news, and there's plenty of good news as we see it today in front of us. And the good news continues. I mean, right now, today in Pakistan, almost nearly 40% of Pakistan's researchers are actually women, according to UNESCO's World Science Report. That puts us, by the way, ahead of France, Germany, and Switzerland, and many other countries. And we can be proud of that. We can really, really be proud of that number. And clearly, and as the AQ president, I'm so proud because I know that AQU and colleagues at AQU have played a large role to enable that positive outcome. Recently, a group of AQ researchers, and all of them women, examined 15 years of publication in the Journal of the College of Physicians and Surgeons in Pakistan. They found that 44% of first authors were women. Not only that, women were the majority of first authors in recent years, and I think that calls for applause. So that's positive. What is also positive is that Stanford University recently ranked 25 AQ researchers in the top 2% of the most cited scientists in the world. And 11 of those researchers from AQ were and are women. So clearly, ladies and gentlemen, friends, colleagues, we need to work together to eliminate stereotypes and biases. We need to keep working to ensure that our academic and research workplaces, our work environments are inclusive, welcoming, and supportive. And we need more projects like supporting women in science. And this was not meant to be a one-off initiative, and I hope this will not be a one-off initiative. We will continue with this. The aim has been to catalyze action and encourage a strategic approach to training scientists and increasing research activity within universities and research centers and across the country. Dr. Kizmekia Corbett, who was the COVID-19, the coronavirus vaccine scientist, she said, "Science is for everyone. Science is for everyone. It belongs to the people who are curious." The sky, ladies and gentlemen, should be the limit for Pakistan's women scientists. And I know that together, all of us working together can make sure of that. Thank you very much for your attention, and I wish you a successful conference. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Shahabuddin. It's now my pleasure to invite Dr. Tania Pipala, the Provost and Vice President, Academics of Aga Khan University. From 2017 to 2024, she was the Professor and the Dean of Faculty of Health and Sciences at Simon Fraser University. Previously, she was a Professor in the School of Public Health and adjunct Professor in the Alberta School of Business at the University of Alberta, Canada. She is a Fellow of the Canadian Academy of Health Sciences and Fellow of the Royal Society of Canada. She holds a PhD in biology from the University of Sydney and a JD from the University of Alberta. She clerked for the Honorable Louis Arbour at the Supreme Court of Canada and was called to the Bar Law Society of Alberta in 2005. Her research program in intellectual property and health law focuses on the large collaborative science networks in genomics and advanced therapeutics, addressing barriers to the effective translation and clinical adaptation of new technologies. She has over 150 peer-reviewed publications in law, ethics, medical, and science journals, and has gained over $35 million in research funding. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Pipala on the stage.
Thank you for the introduction. Assalamu alaikum. Yeah. So to our chief guest, Mr. Sultan Ala Alana, our president, our university leadership that are too numerous to mention all individually, and of course, most importantly, to our mentors and mentees that are here, and our collaborators from the University of Oxford. So a very warm welcome. I'm really hoping that you have a great few days discussing the topic, and congratulations on being part of the program. I just went through looking at the rigorous selection process for the current cohorts, so it really is a warm congratulations to you for being part of such a fantastic program. Dr. Buddha, your energy is outstanding. I honestly don't know where you get it all from. You are everywhere, and in such positive impact and such positive influence. So thank you for putting the program together, and thank you for all of the conference organizers. So I think I was asked by Dr. Buddha to give you a little bit of my personal story and my personal history, because a lot of that leaky pipeline I have lived through and experienced, and that's where you get to when you get to my age. So I have a few lessons from that. Senior leadership and probably some of the mentors have probably heard this story a few times, because I am asked to roll it out on occasion, so my apologies for rolling it out again. But for the mentees, hopefully I'll give you a little bit of perspective, or war wounds maybe, from a life in academia as a woman. But before that, I just want to address the why is it important? Why is diversity, and why are women in science? Why is it critical to have those voices in our research contexts? Why is diversity important, and why is it particularly and especially important in countries in the regions where AKU serves? And it's because who asks the questions, and who sets the science funding priorities, and who analyzes and interprets the data all shape what we know and what we overlook. Research agendas are never neutral. They reflect the lived experiences, values, and blind spots of the people and the institutions that are driving them. When decision-making tables are dominated by a narrow slice of society, entire categories of problems, especially those affecting women, marginalized communities, and the global south, are underfunded, mismeasured, or framed in ways that miss the issues that matter most on the ground. So diverse leadership in science changes the questions we ask, the methods we trust, the outcomes we track, and the policies we design in response. And this becomes even more critical in an era of AI, where trained models learn from historical data that already encode bias and inequity. And if those designing, training, and governing AI systems share the same narrow perspective, the technology can quickly amplify existing injustices at scale, systematically misclassifying, underserving, or excluding certain populations. So over the next 2 days, you're going to hear the results of the Swiss-supported cross-regional communities of practice. You'll hear about research that's methodologically rigorous, diverse, grounded in local realities, and speaks to our shared commitments under the Sustainable Development Goals, particularly health, gender equality, and climate action. And it shows in practical ways what becomes possible when women lead research in their own contexts. And I think that's the power and the strength of where we are going from here and why it's so important. Okay, so now you get the boring story. And this is where I can leave my notes behind and go a little bit ad lib. I'll channel my president. So, I grew up in science. The first place I visited before I went home from the hospital when I was born was a research laboratory, because my father was a research scientist. And he was so thrilled to have this new baby that instead of going home, he went straight to the lab. So I kind of grew up in a lab. And what I remember from growing up, so he was a geomicrobiologist. He worked on microbes that exist at high temperatures and high pressures. Was he always kind of exuded this aroma from his sweaters and his clothing of this mixture of agar and heavy carbon, right? So I lived in this science world. And so when it came to go to university, there was kind of never really any question about what it was that I was expected to do, and that was to go into science at ANU. So I went into zoology, genetics, biochemistry, ecology, the basic sciences in my undergraduate program. But, you know, I remember being flat out told by my physiology professor that there was no point taking women into PhD programs because all that we were going to do was have babies. And this was in 1985, 86, right? So, you know, I bucked the trend and I went on to my PhD, and I did my PhD at University of Sydney. And I did that PhD in conservation biology, and I did it in a very male-dominated area of conservation biology, which is carnivore biology. And the bigger the carnivore, the more macho the scientists that you get to hang out at the conferences with, right? So, you know, I studied red foxes, so it's a little bit of a feminine carnivore, right? But when you're in the poster session with the lions and the really big things that can eat you, you know, it's a very He-Man kind of place to be. But my first experience, so I very romantically met my husband at a science conference, and so we met at a mammalogy, international mammalogy conference in Sydney. And his supervisor was networking like crazy, taking him to every leading person internationally, introducing him as his star student, you know, creating career opportunities for him. And so I was sort of trailing along behind and thinking, wow, that's really cool. My supervisor's reaction when he came to visit my poster was, oh, it's as pretty as his presenter, with no networking. Okay, so this is just a statement of fact. So I battled my way through my PhD, and it was all good. But for love, I moved to Canada, and you know, I wish I could say that it was for grand scientific questions and postdocs at University of Toronto. But I delivered my first baby and my PhD thesis within 24 hours. And then it was kind of like, well, what do I do now? So I did eventually get a faculty position at University of Toronto. It was a teaching position. My husband was on faculty. He was an assistant professor. And then he got an amazing opportunity at another university. It's very hard to coordinate two academic careers. And so he got a job at the University of Alberta, and when I went, I got some sessional lecture gigs and no faculty position. And I had a newborn baby and a 4-year-old. So it wasn't that there was anything that he had done. This is a systemic issue in science. I was in a position where there was just no career path for me. So one thing I had learned from my parents was resilience. You know, if at first it don't succeed, try and try again, and pick yourself up, dust yourself off, and go again. So what do you do with a 1-year-old and a 5-year-old? You go back to law school, obviously. And so at that time, we had met as graduate students. My husband was a full professor, and I was an undergraduate student, because law is technically an undergraduate degree. So I did well in law school. I got interested in health law. I completely changed my field. I reinvented myself. I went off to the Supreme Court. David came with me. He did a sabbatical. I came back to a faculty position. They started a new school of public health. They needed a health law and policy person, so I was hired as an assistant professor. I rose through the ranks, became associate dean research. My favorite part of that job was mentoring junior faculty members. And then I got hired as a dean. I was the first female dean at the Faculty of Health Sciences at Simon Fraser University. And as I sat there, I watched I watched other women get hired, and then we had hired a women president. So once you start getting women in leadership, you hire other women, right? And you advance the careers. So as a dean, I was very, very focused on moving forward and advancing the careers of my women researchers, especially my early career researchers. It was an absolute passion. So, and then I got hired here to AKU. And what a treat. So what you don't know about your president, and because I think, you're missing a few VPs, He's surrounded by women. He's completely surrounded himself by women in leadership. We have women deans, we have women vice presidents, we have women vice provosts, and I don't think we realize how rare that is for an institution. So more power to you, because you can have words, but what happens is action. So the whole reason for telling you this kind of rambling story of reinventing yourself is, first of all, that word resilience. But the second part of the story is you never know where life will take you. And just being adaptable and open to opportunities. So now that I'm in a position of leadership in an academy, my science background, even when I was doing law, is still at the forefront because I do policy work, right? I do tech policy. And so regardless of where your training has come from and regardless where your paths take you, you will always benefit from that foundational training in the science disciplines that you come from, and society and institutions will benefit. So good luck to you all. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Bubala. Our first keynote address is titled At the Nexus of Science, Service, and Leadership, Advancing Women's Health Through Research, and will be delivered by the Professor Tasneem Ahsan, a distinguished graduate of Tau Medical College and a fellow of the UK Royal Colleges. She retired as Executive Director, Professor, and Head of Medicine at JPMC, and was elected Professor Emerita in 2017. A pioneer in establishing endocrinology, rheumatology at JPMC. She is the founding member of the Pakistan Endocrine Society and Medicine and Endocrine Foundation. Currently, she serves as the Dean at the Medical Institute of Diabetes, Endocrinology, Metabolism, Director of the Department of Diabetes and Endocrinology at OMI, and the Professor Emerita at JPMC. An internationally recognized leader, she received the 2023 Laureate Award for International Excellence in Endocrinology by the Endocrine Society USA. With numerous publications and the role on advisory boards, Professor Ahsan continues to shape the field of endocrinology in Pakistan. She has mentored many internists and endocrinologists and still continues to train the endocrinologists. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Tasneem Ahsan on the stage.
Assalamu alaikum and good evening, ladies and gentlemen. First of all, allow me to thank the organizing committee and in particular Professor Bhutta for giving me the privilege of addressing this august gathering. That is the kind of outline that I'm going to go through very quickly. Science is the foundation spine of modern medicine. In the field of medical science, all scientific inquiry aims to lead to a continuous probe to unravel the immensely complex human condition, a better understanding of deviations from normality, understand disease, improve diagnostics, and ability to fix these deviations, that is, develop treatments, and at the end of the day, enable healthy longevity. So we have to deliver all of the above within the framework of ethics, empathy, compassion, and care. Scientific methods keeps us grounded in evidence, not assumptions or hearsay or my experience. You have to be more solid than that. And science is what has delivered to us precision medicine, gene editing, regenerative medicine, minimally invasive and robotic surgeries, and life-saving vaccines like COVID-19 vaccine, the most rapid deployment of a vaccine that changed the course of the pandemic that we all experienced, and of course, life-saving drugs. Back in the 15th century, this alchemist, Paracelsus, had said that medicine is not only a science, it is also an art. It does not consist of compounding pills and plasters. It deals with the very process of life. And this holds true even now. So my scientific perspective is primarily that of a clinical practitioner in medicine, along with all the multidimensional roles that are a prerequisite. And I have spent my life working not in an AKU kind of hospital. I have worked in a very, very busy, overwhelmed, underfunded public sector hospital, understaffed, underfunded public sector hospital. So service means that you put patients first, and even when it is inconvenient, uncomfortable, or unclear, and it means that you listen with empathy, not just to tabulate symptoms and signs, and we have a lot of young people here, so you need to pay attention to that. It requires humility and knowing when to act, when to wait, and when to ask for assistance. And above all, and this is the most important thing, the acknowledgement about your capability to deliver therapy being the consequence of the toil, heartbreak, and triumph of the generations of scientists who came before you. This is something that should keep everyone grounded, that what you're executing is somebody else's very hard work. And I thought I'd give some examples of service here for people, all people from Karachi. I've had the good fortune and the privilege of working with all of them. So Dr. Ruth Pfau, the German doctor who came to Pakistan as a young woman as a part of her church-driven directive to go to India, but somehow she landed in Karachi, didn't get her visa for India, and stayed on, and somebody directed her to the leper colony, as they were called back then, on II Chandigarh Road. And from then on, all she did with her life was to find people with leprosy and treat them. And who can be credited with eradicating an infectious disease almost single-handedly with a very small team of workers who devotedly worked with her, and then she went all over Pakistan, found people with leprosy, documented them, treated them, and started the Mary Adelaide Leprosy Center. And before she died, she invited me to be on the board of that, and that's how I know a lot of what happened there. The best part was, after her death, the German Leprosy Foundation decided to look at their data, and they have engaged somebody to publish what they had done. So they had all the work, but she had not published anything. And that is now becoming a model for managing diseases like leprosy for the rest of the world. So I wish she was alive to see that. My dear departed friend, Professor Shiri Bhutta, she worked tirelessly in abominable conditions. But such was the culture of that hospital where we all worked. You just worked. You just kept on doing what had to be done, regardless of what you did or did not have. And it was that work which was seen, recognized, honored, and she got the attention of not only the people who were running the hospital, but the donor community. And she was able to then, with the help of some people around her, and I worked on her projects as well, and it was a good fortune that I was the executive director of the institution when we started out in turning around her department, which was demolished and then built according to her design by the USAID, the Tabba Foundation, and many other donors. So she had donor confidence for what she had done. And she had my back. For 5 years, these two women, we worked very closely. Our detractors called us these three women. That was meant to be a slur. Ye teen aurtein. So Simi Jamali, everybody knows her, because Simi is also Shiri, just like Shiri, who will be remembered for her composure, for her courage, for her hard work, above all for her service and leadership. Simi did the same. Her service was located in the ER of Jinnah Hospital, and she was also very successful in another thing which none of us knew how to do. She knew how to manage the media. And she didn't just work, she made sure that that work was seen. And I think that is something that all of you should learn, especially the young people. I didn't know how to do that. I would run a mile from a journalist or somebody who was toting a camera. Simi would just go and face them. She was a very good face for the hospital. She represented our hospital very well, both by backbones gone too soon. Professor Aij Bhatti, I think at least the older people here will know him. Again, a man known more for his service than anything else. He was a humanitarian. He was an outstanding surgeon and worked pretty much all by himself for many decades before more neurosurgeons came along. He was charismatic, ethical, mentor, researcher, inventor of the low-cost VP shunt called the Bhatti shunt, which he patented. And he published his last paper some 4 months before he died, with the help of some neurosurgeons from Aga Khan, because this had been lying with him for a very long time. He was the keenest intellect I have ever encountered in my life. Professor Adibul Hasan Rizvi, every Karachiite would know him. And not only has he had an immeasurable contribution to the service of humanity, he's a urologist par excellence, a founder of SIUT, not just in Karachi, but now multiple branches, pioneer of renal transplant, even liver transplant, philanthropist and recipient of multiple national and international awards. So what about leadership? So whenever we talk about leadership, we think, okay, the top guy. Leadership in medicine is about influence. It's about responsibility, integrity, and not titles or positions. So everybody practicing medicine is a leader. Leader to their patients, their teams, their juniors, their communities, and medical leaders must make hard decisions, often with incomplete data, and with high stakes. It means advocating for better policies, fairer systems, and ethical standards. And with the world facing wars, pandemics, famine, health disparities, and misinformation, there is a real need for courageous and compassionate and egalitarian leadership. Leadership is not about hierarchy, as I said, titles or positions. It is about exerting influence through example. That's the best model for leadership. It is about inspiring others to care deeply, to analyze critically, and to act selflessly. It is about collaboration and teamwork. A leader always values each member of his team. And everyone in healthcare who has chosen to provide care to the others has moments of leadership. It is about service. Every decision we make affects lives and truly begins with careful listening, empathy, and integrity, putting the patient's welfare before anything else. And it is about teamwork, and it is about trusting each other. And above all, the most profound aspect of leadership in medicine is mentorship. It enables us to shape the next generation in the acquisition of clinical and miscellaneous skills, of values and humanity, of resilience, and other things. And here are a list of leadership styles. I'm not going to go through with it, but it certainly makes for very interesting reading. And you could combine many of these things depending on what your team is and what your focus is, and do bits of each to be actually successful in getting to your target. Finally, research, and I'll give you, I thought, what is the best way of doing this? And I thought I could probably do it through a story, and the story which is close to my clinical expertise, which is the story of diabetes. So medical science will always be a work in evolution, and today's standards of care may be tomorrow's history, because new information comes along. And to be a good doctor is to be a lifelong researcher and learner of new evidence. So let's start with Dame Marie Curie. And this is what Albert Einstein had to say about her. Few persons contributed more to the general welfare of mankind and to the advancement of science than the modest, self-effacing woman called Ma'am Curie. And this is the problem with us women. We are self-effacing. Usually the men who work with us and do half the work will be right in front of us when the time comes to present something. This is how they get ahead. So the young girls here learn to blow your own trumpet. She was the first woman to win a Nobel Prize, first person to win a Nobel Prize twice, only person to win a Nobel Prize in 2 scientific disciplines, physics and chemistry. And she was the radiation lady. She was the principal investigator. But her husband and her co-investigator got nominated for the Nobel Prize, and she wasn't mentioned. And it was only because he was her husband, he refused to be nominated if she wasn't. So she was nominated the following year, and this is how She got the Nobel Prize. So pioneering research in radioactivity, discovery of 2 new elements in the periodic table. So polonium and radium, and application of research. So she made mobile X-ray vans and went to the front lines of the First World War, X-rayed the injured soldiers, saw who had broken bones and who could be treated appropriately and shifted. And she discovered not only the radiation for X-rays, but its use in cancer therapy. And now we're still using. Her work was built on, so we now use radiation much more safely and much more sophisticated manner to deliver the same cancer treatment. She was the first female professor at the University of Paris, and it was no wonder that she died of aplastic anemia, because at that time they did not know the deleterious effects of radiations. She always had ulcers on her fingers because she handled radioactive material with bare hands. So it's a wonder that she even lived to 66 years of age. So Rosalind Franklin's story is even more interesting. The picture you see in the background is the photo 51. She was an English chemist and crystallographer. Her X-ray diffraction images of DNA, particularly the photo 51, provided crucial clues about the structure of the molecule. Her calculations and measurements played an essential part in the discovery of DNA structure. But she showed her picture to her boss, who was a fellow scientist. He ran away with it, showed it to her friend, and the two of them got the Nobel Prize. She was never mentioned. And the prize was actually awarded, thank God, after she had died. She died young at 38 years of age. So scientist emerita, Dr. Sarfraz Jahan Zuberi, I had the privilege of being her very, very junior friend. And she was an outstanding researcher. She was the pioneer of hepatology and gastroenterology in Pakistan. She was a very, very strict and disciplined administrator for Pakistan Medical Research Council and her own, the Karachi department. And she was a journal editor of the first index journal of Pakistan, Journal of Pakistan Medical Association, for most of her professional life until she died. So one day I walked into her office because I'd written my first paper, and that was on hepatitis with falciparum malaria, with severe jaundice. And I didn't know her. I just said, I've come for some feedback from you because you're the liver person in Pakistan. Can you please have a look at this whenever you have time? So she just took her pencil, and she started reading it there and then. And I could have died at that moment. But she read it. She didn't just read a little bit of it. She read the whole of it. She marked it through and through. And at the end of it, I just felt she's going to say something, very demeaning to me. But no, she said, this is very good. You just go and fix this, and we'll publish it. And it was published. So I'm very fortunate. And then when I lamented that how does one do research in JPMC, there's nothing here, no support. She said, Bibi, all you need is a pencil and a paper. I haven't forgotten that. And she gave me my first book of research methodology. And that was when I first read about research. So let's come to insulin, which I meant to talk about. And so the link between diabetes, glucose and insulin and pancreas had been discovered before 1921. But the discovery of insulin was done by Dr. Fleming Banting. He was, interestingly enough, an orthopedic surgeon and was a war surgeon. But when he came back, he was interested in fixing diabetes. And he somehow thought that if he took out the dog pancreas and removed the exocrine pancreas, he could work on the endocrine, extract the insulin, and use it for treatment. And here again, they won the Nobel Prize for Physiology and Medicine. In 1923, there were 4 people who were involved. The professor of physiology and Dr. Banting got the prize, but they shared their prize money equally with their 2 colleagues. And this was the result. So this type 1 diabetes was a death sentence. Everybody who was diagnosed with diabetes was dead within a year. So here's the first child treated, and that was him after receiving insulin. And Banting did not patent insulin for personal gain. Instead, he, along with his colleagues, sold the US patent to the University of Toronto for a nominal fee of $1 each. Banting believed that insulin was a gift for the world. Dorothy Crawford Hodgkin, an English biochemist again who advanced the technique of X-ray crystallography. She got a Nobel Prize in chemistry in 1964, and these are some of the various chemicals that she recognized or described the structure of. Insulin was one of our most extraordinary research projects, and it was instrumental in paving the way for insulin to be mass-produced. So here, insulin being taken from pancreas, and now you have insulin being mass-produced for treatment. And this was treatment both of type 1 and type 2 diabetes. This was followed by a slew of research on development of insulins that behaved closer to the way native insulin worked. It was mimicking pharmacodynamics of the native insulin. So you got the analog insulin, and every time a new insulin was made, it was more expensive. Then we got the continuous glucose monitoring devices, the little strips that people wear, where subcutaneous glucose is sensed all the time. That changed how we understood diabetes. We got new metrics for control, and this then led to the subsequent advancement, especially for type 1 diabetes, was the pumps, where the insulin was continuously delivered according to a programmed pump. And after that, the pumps became more and more refined, and now you have a hybrid closed-loop pump, which sort of senses the glucose at the same time, talks to the AI algorithm, and delivers the insulin required. The wearer only has to log in the amount of food they have eaten, the carbohydrates, and exercise. So where do we stand now? After pancreatic transplants and islet cell transplants, which require immunotherapy, which is more difficult, now we're in the era of regenerative medicine. So we are standing at the cusp of stem cells being used to cure type 1 diabetes. And now, every few weeks we get a case being described where some form of stem cell has been used to repopulate beta cells in the body that are producing insulin, and this patient whose life depends on insulin, is now insulin-free. And the same thing, the same stem cells can be used for degenerative, all degenerative or injury-related neural diseases, and there's a possibility for cure now. And the first stem cell treatment has restored vision already. So there is tremendous potential there. This is, again, a life-changing discovery by two women from the west coast of, I think, California. And they got a Nobel Prize in 2020, and they're basically editing genes now. So whatever your genes, there is now the capacity to change your genetic structure. So remove the faulty gene, and therefore treat genetic diseases with what we call the genetic scissor, and add new genes. So even yesterday, there was a report of a Down syndrome patient having been treated with this technology. This was the first baby who was treated for a fatal metabolic disease with gene therapy. So let's switch gears now and come to type 2 diabetes, which is the most common diabetes. And this is Professor Knudsen from Denmark. And she's a chief scientist, scientific advisor, and researcher at Novo Nordisk. She was responsible for the development of GLP-1 for type 2 diabetes treatment, that is liraglutide, which is first in this class. And they saw that there was a lot of weight loss going on with people with liraglutide. So she then convinced her CEO and her fellow scientists to go down that path in the development of drugs for the treatment of obesity. And over 20 years, they worked on it, and they managed to come out with semaglutide, which is available here now. And people are losing lots of weight. And now CagriSema, which is even more stronger. So diabetes is in evolution, how we treat it. This is just my very recent work where even the classification of diabetes is changing. And in Sweden, one scientist called Alquist looked at all her registries and through a statistical method tried to see, how are these type 2 patients with type 2 diabetes so non-homogeneous? So what's going on here? And she could come up with 5 different clusters wherever she looked. And in most of the Caucasian world where this study was replicated, they saw the same clusters and the same percentages. But when these clusters were repeated in our part of the world, in India and in Dubai, we saw different clusters. And I have just completed this work. We are in the process of writing it up. So maybe some of you can see it maybe in a couple of months, published somewhere. This is a very significant research because for the first time we understand what is this inhomogeneous type 2 diabetes population. So we use 6 parameters for classifying them. This is my story at the end. So I've been the first woman director of a very large public sector hospital back in 2000 and it's so long ago I've forgotten, 2009, end of 2009. So, and my only award, other than the award that I really value, which was my peers giving me the Professor Emerita title, this is the only award I've ever received. So somehow, way away, the oldest endocrine society of the world acknowledged my work done in a poor resource hospital, and I got the International Laureate Award for Excellence in Endocrinology in 2023 by the Endocrine Society of US. And I published my story. So I published my story last year. My arm was literally twisted by the younger female members of my family because they knew my stories and they said, you owe it to us to write it down. We'll read it and learn how you coped and how you got where you did to the top of your organization. And that's my little granddaughter who's 10 now. She wrote a poem when she was 6 and that poem is included in my book and she considers herself a co-author, and if both of us are together, she will insist on signing the book with me. So this is our integrated path in medicine. Science and research gives us the knowledge, service gives us the purpose, and leadership gives us the direction. Together, these pillars shape the kind of physician the world truly needs, not just skilled in medicine, but rooted in humanity. And medicine is a lifelong commitment to truth, to others, and to making a difference. I just threw this in because so many of our very young colleagues have just died suddenly, and these sudden deaths, every time, they jolt you. So I think we all work very hard. We need to take a look after ourselves also, our lifestyles, our eating habits, our exercise, and reading stuff that is not medical. So I thought this would be a good end to this talk, and this young lady came to my attention does anyone recognize her? Yeah. The young girl who spoke at Biden's inaugural, and her poem was phenomenal. So I just started reading her work, and I came across this one, which she had read at the 2019 Forbes Women's Summit, the first Women's Summit. Forbes is a very important body in the business world. And this is what she said: what is the way forward when women have met many roadblocks instead of roads? What is the way forward when on this path we've carried hefty burdens and heavy loads? I wish I could read all of it, but I just picked a few lines. We are the storm, the very form of change. Women are that great foray toward what the world's been waiting for. You see, the way forward isn't a road we take. The way forward is a road women make. And we'll keep fulfilling this path. We'll keep fulfilling this path until the world goes still to say, where there is will, there's women, and where there's women, there is always a way. Thank you very much. So when things are looking dark, keep your chin up, just keep your focus on your target, and keep persisting, and you will rise and shine. Best wishes for the conference. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Essen. Our second keynote speaker is titled Championing Equity in Education, A Journey of Research, Leadership, and Impact. And it will be delivered by Professor Anjum Halai. Professor Halai brings extensive experience in higher education in low and middle income countries. She obtained her doctorate degree from the Oxford University, UK. She is a research fellow at the Center for International Education and Development at Sussex University, UK, and was an adjunct professor at the University of Alberta, Canada, 2011 till 2016. She has sustained interest in mathematics education based on her significant contribution to the field of mathematics education in low-income countries. She was elected as the Vice President 2021 till 2024 in the globally influential Executive Committee of the International Commission of Mathematical Instructions. She is also an elected Fellow of the World Academy of Arts and Sciences. Dr. Halai has published widely in the area of gender and education. She led the task force at AKU to develop policy on awareness and prevention of gender-based harassment. She is a member of Advisory Committee on Women's Leadership Academy at AKU. Nationally, she is a member of the Women's Leadership Group in Pakistan, set up by the Higher Education Commission. Please welcome Dr. Halai on this stage.
Forward. Assalamu alaikum and good evening. What a pleasure and privilege to be addressing this conference on supporting women in science, a topic which is very close to my heart and forms a big part of my research experience and my work experience. I've been asked to speak about my journey, and I will look at that, but I will draw very much, I'll pull myself back and look at the journey that women and girls face in traversing a pathway through higher education and careers in science. And I will draw largely upon the case of Pakistan, but the issues I raise are of wider relevance. I studied applied and pure mathematics in my first degree, and this incident really stands out for me. I was waiting at the college pickup point for the bus, and I had 2 books in my hand, and an elderly gentleman stopped and asked me, "Beta, kya pad rahi ho?" "Daughter, what are you studying?" And he took the books from me and looked at them, integral calculus and mechanics. And he said, "Beta, ye to ladko ke padhne wali hain. Daughter, this is for boys to study." Now, this incident was somewhere in 1980, but it encapsulates, in a nutshell, the societal perceptions about girls and mathematics and about boys and what they should be studying. These issues, I'll come back to it, that these perspectives are relevant even today. When I said that I'll pull back and look at not just myself, but the girls and women who traverse the path and come to this august auditorium, what is it? What are the paths? The first issue is access. In a country where education access is given by law, there are still 26 million children out of school. Will this show here? Yes, about 26 million children out of school. And this government statistic says that equal distribution of out of school between girls and boys, but there are other credible reports which state that the out of school girls, proportion of out of school girls is much more higher. Pakistan education system is gender segregated, and especially at post-primary levels, and there are not enough schools for girls. You can see here, okay, so these are enrollment, and here you look at schools, less schools for girls as compared to boys, And even in that, it masks the deeper inequities when we go away from big cities and when we look at secondary schools. So there may be many more primary schools for girls, but when it comes to secondary schools, we don't have as many. We look at, okay, so however many children make it to the schools, how many complete secondary school cycle? Retention is again a big issue. So 84% children will enter the first grade of the primary school, but only 77% will complete. And then as we go to lower secondary, the figure drops sharply. So what I'm trying to say that if for women and girls in Pakistan to come to this stage, there are certain basic challenges in access, infrastructure-related challenges, supply-related challenges that have to be faced. So the girls who made it, completed the secondary school cycle, how are they performing? They are performing very well. Oh dear, I didn't put this movement. I don't know how it has come, but anyways, it shows in all the newspaper clippings that girls are actually performing very well as compared to boys. And these are different newspaper clippings that I have shown from over a period, that girls performing in the metric, and metric is the secondary school certificate leaving exam, and intermediate, the higher secondary school leaving exam. Okay, these are girls doing very well. My then interest was, where do these girls go? What career choices do they make? And it's important because at grade, in any school system, at some point in time, there is streaming, and girls and boys have to choose which group they will follow. And in Pakistan, that happens at the end of grade 8 or the beginning of the secondary school cycle. I was looking for statistics at national level, could not find how many secondary school girls go for science group. There are two groups which are offered, science groups and the general group, which is arts, humanities. There are no nationally gender disaggregated statistics that are available. So I decided, because I was very curious, to look at the Aga Khan Examination Board data over a 10-year period. Aga Khan Examination Boards, some of you may know, that it's a private examination board run by our university, and it has the number of students here over a 10-year period are more than 27,000, but these don't all come from Aga Khan schools because there aren't as many Aga Khan schools at the higher secondary level. These students come from across all over Pakistan, from low-fee private schools, trust-based schools. Except for Balochistan, we have Aga Khan Examination Board serves schools from all over the country. Interesting is that of the total students, I said that streaming occurs in science group. Science group is further disaggregated, and I'll explain that. 88% students go for the science group. And other groups, humanities and commerce, which includes business studies, will take only 12% of the students go for that. And when you look at the gender breakup, pre-engineering, 33% girls go for it, and 67% boys go for it, of the 27,000 plus total students. We look at pre-medicine. That's another group in the science that is offered. Many more students go for pre-medical group. Among that, girls go predominantly for the pre-medical group, 70%. Then there is the science general group. Again, boys will go, science general also has advanced maths and physics. Pre-engineering has advanced maths and physics, whereas in pre-medical you would not do mathematics, you'd take biology. So the data is illuminative in terms of choices that the girls make when they have the option to take choose different career paths. And this data actually confirms other systematic studies, such one of them being having been conducted by UNDP in the Asia-Pacific region, which confirms that if girls have the option to take a decision, very often they will make pragmatic choices and they will not go into STEM fields. The worldview being that STEM fields are much more competitive and they will not enable progression for women and girls in that profession. And also societal expectations are that women will be in professions which are much more nurturing and caring professions, and therefore they go for pre-medical. Now, what happens to women who do, girls and women here, we say 70% of them are going for the pre-medical group. What happens to them? An interesting British Council did a study in Pakistan about women in science, and of course it's not very current. It was around 2016. And their finding is that 50% of female graduates never work following their studies. 70% of medical students are women, only 23% are registered doctors. Of course, and then at that time, there was a quota introduced. Now the quota was challenged by court, but the deeper and bigger issue still remains of women not being able to sustain themselves in the career pathways, even though they have studied science. And later studies have found that three main reasons, studies in Pakistan, but they also have relevance in other contexts. Three main reasons. One is culture. Third are family expectations. Women will be the main caregivers and offer nurturing environment in the family. And then third comes some structural policy-related barriers that do not encourage the women to to sustain themselves in the career. So what do we do about it? How do we kind of address this issue? A very common metaphor, Dr. Bhutta mentioned, the leaky pipeline metaphor. The leaky pipeline metaphor really permeates the narrative about women in science. The logic behind it is that women will enter, and then the women in science who take the science pathway will study mathematics, physics, those advanced mathematics, algebra, go on to take majors in their undergraduate studies in one or two or in whichever STEM fields, and then they will progress further. That's the logic, and it sounds logical, but then along the way, for different reasons, there is leakage in the pipeline, and therefore policymakers feel that they need to understand what are the points of leakages and then try to plug the leakages through interventions. Sounds very logical, but there is empirical evidence that the leaky pipeline metaphor does not really work for several reasons. One being that it supposes that there is only one entry point, and it goes into a linear pathway, and it precludes policy interventions that could support women entering science at different stages in their life, multiple entry points. And therefore, there are studies which show that instead of a pipeline metaphor, a multiple pathways metaphor for science is much more equitable and much more reasonable to work. What does a multiple pathways for women in science look like? It takes a holistic life cycle approach to understand that the reasons why women are not able to continue their pathways in science, even if they have an interest in it or even if they have studied in it, does not lie in one facet of life, but they are in many integrated facets of life, including family, education, and careers. What would support them? Equitable, positive learning opportunities and a positive science identity. We know from systematic studies and even the work that Aga Khan University does in the Women's Leadership Academy. And I believe that is also something that has been found in the Supporting Women in Science programs, that women typically have very low self-efficacy beliefs and low sense of confidence because we come from very patriarchal family backgrounds, and therefore an important point would be in building a positive science identity, which is predictive of sustaining women in science careers, would be to build their self-efficacy beliefs, their sense of being a science person. Not just themselves, but those around them look at them as a science person, and those look very, how do you create that sense? I mean, I'll talk a little bit about that, but those are predictive of helping women to stay on. Of course, multiple pathways are not set in tracks in a school system, and they offer opportunities to enter or re-enter careers in science at different stages. And if you take this framework, then of course policymakers would have to make interventions which help to either lower the barriers or remove the barriers at different stages in the career, enable women to re-enter through whatever be the reasons for which they have fallen through. So multiple pathways for women in science offers a much more holistic, flexible, and a complex approach to continue in the careers in science. What are some of the interventions or actions that we can do in higher education arena and in policy making arena? The most important factor is and this has come across in the British Council study, in my own studies, that societal bias and societal beliefs of highly, traditional, entrenched gender roles and relationships are entrenched, and those are cited by women when they do not pursue demanding careers or they do not pursue careers in STEM fields. So break the bias, not at the time when they are making their decisions at the end of secondary school cycle. By then it's too late. Beliefs are entrenched. Start early. Unless we educate our boys differently, because male gender is the dominant gender, we should aim to educate our boys differently for an egalitarian gender social order in our society. Our educators should, especially in the field where I work from, in teacher education, teachers should be trained to question the deeply patriarchal norms and practices that pervade the education practice. So that's break the bias. Quality of teaching. In the study that I mentioned about, that was carried out for women in science in Pakistan, and also several other studies, which I have mentioned in the reference sheet here, quality of teaching, especially for mathematics, is noted as one of the reasons why girls do not pursue higher education in mathematics. Gender bias in teaching and texts. Very often teaching and texts perpetuate the beliefs, those low self-efficacy in mathematics that really pushes the girls out of the system in studying mathematics. I recall very much an experience during my research when we were interviewing secondary school teachers. And I found that teachers, this was Interior Sindh, and I found that teachers in the girls' school were not teaching certain topics in advanced algebra in the class. So I asked, why are you skipping these topics? And the answer was, Madam, inhone to chula hi karna hai na, so why teach them this? Meaning they have to mind their homes and their kitchens, so they won't need trigonometry and algebra, so we are not teaching them. So what I'm trying to say here is that not only those biases were perpetuated, but also the curriculum was diluted for these girls in a gender-segregated school system. And then, of course, there are other issues, teachers' academic preparation, very theoretical teaching, which kind of disenchants the learners from mathematics. Several of the features that I'm going to talk about here, I was studying the Supporting Women in Science project. They imbibe these. So we heard that in STEM fields, leadership remains strongly male-dominated. What does that do for women? Often leads to isolation. They are unable to network. And I will share my own experience that when I went to Tanzania, and I also experienced here in Pakistan, in 2 occasions, I was told, how did you come to these decisions? Where did you decide? This was not decided in any of the forums. And the answer was, हम तो जुमा नमाज के वक्त ये सारे फैसले कर लेते हैं. Okay, so the men would go to the mosque for Jummah Namaz, and then that would be their networking opportunity. And many of the decisions they took they had calmly agreed upon, and we women were left out. So networking became an issue. In Tanzania, one senior colleague told me, okay, so welcome aboard. You are now in the position of, at that time we called director, now it's dean. Do you go to the pubs in the evening? And I said, no, that's not part of my social cultural experience. He said, well, okay, if you don't do that networking, you'll be left out. So that isolation, difficulty in networking, and lack of professional development opportunities, all of these, we need to address systemically so that women can have a chance at progress in the same way as men do. Policy level, access to childcare, maternity and family leave policies, targeted training and mentorship for women could facilitate women's participation because we have a groundbreaking study in the field of mathematics school education, where first the researchers claimed that students of female teachers do not perform well in mathematics. But when they probed, they found out that women were unable to take part in many of the continuing education programs because they did not have the transport facilities or the access facilities, and therefore they were lagging behind in their own capacity to teach at that level. Professional learning, professional networks, and career guidance came across as 2 key areas, especially for girls in underprivileged areas. So big cities, we will have access to. But when we work, for example, in interior Sindh, we go to Chitral, and deep into the mountainous areas, we feel that we really need to ensure that awareness is there about what are the multiple career pathways open to girls and how they can pursue it. Also providing career guidance to students already in STEM fields. If they are studying STEM subjects, but they also need career guidance, and similar for engaging women professionals. Role models. I look at my own trajectory, and I'm very fortunate that in the family, I had strong role models, women in science who encouraged me. In my education and career, I had strong role models. And this picture here, does anybody recognize her? Maryam Mirza Khani. Maryam Mirza Khani was the first ever woman to receive the Field Medal in mathematics. Field Medal is equivalent to a Nobel Prize in mathematics. A young woman from Iran. Oh boy, you'll never find her given a place of pride in mathematics or other teaching and textbooks here in Pakistan. So we do have role models. We need to celebrate them. We need to acknowledge them because, again, there is strong evidence that women will find it very conducive to their career development if they see strong women in science as role models. So pulling back, I try to pull back and say, what is the pathway that women and girls in Pakistan, a very traditional society with very entrenched gender norms and practices, but they have to navigate to reach these halls of where they have opportunity. And today, when I stand where I do. Young early career women come to me for advice. I leave them with this verse by Ishrat Moin Samina. Now, the translation is mine, it's not literal, but the point I want to make is I want women to understand that culture and tradition, of course, is there, but women have to take charge of their destiny, push the boundaries of tradition and culture, and inshallah, Sardar, ladkiyan banengi, women will be the leaders. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Halai. I would now like to invite our chief guest, Mr. Sultan Ali Elana, to deliver his remarks. Mr. Elana is the chairman of Pakistan's largest commercial bank and is considered to be a leading figure in the Pakistan's financial landscape. Since 2004, he has led the board of HBL as a representative of the Agha Fund for Economic Development, of which he is a director. On behalf of AKFED, Mr. Elana was involved in leading the successful privatization bid for HBL. Post-privatization, HBL has made significant progress in not only enhancing its footprint in the country and as well as in the international markets, but also by registering impressive growth rates, which has positioned the bank as one of the premier financial institutions of the country. Mr. Elana is a career banking professional with 40 years of experience in retail, corporate and investment banking. Mr. Elana is also the head of Financial Institutions Group, which is responsible for the oversight of AKFD investments in commercial bank, insurance companies and microfinance bank in over 10 countries. Mr. Elana is committed to the cause of financial inclusion in order to reach out to the unbanked populations of Pakistan, and it is in the vein that he has been extensively involved in promoting sustainable microfinance in Pakistan. In 2000, he worked with the government of Pakistan to promulgate the microfinance banking ordinance, along with leading the establishment of the first microfinance bank limited in 2002, which he served as the chairman until 2006. Mr. Elana holds undergraduate and postgraduate degrees from McGill University and the University of Wisconsin in engineering and management. In recognition of his services and the strengthening of the business and social sector in Pakistan, the government of Pakistan conferred the Sitara Imtiaz upon him in 2006 and Hilala Imtiaz in 2023. For his services to the nation in the area of financial inclusion and his assistance provided negotiating challenges on the economic front through advice and targeted interventions. Most recently, on 23rd March 2025, he was given the highest national award of Nishan-e-Khidmat for his continued dedication to public service and impactful contribution to the national development. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Elana on the stage.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Distinguished scientists, scholars, ustads, health professionals, students, and esteemed guests of the Agha University, Assalamu alaikum, and a very, very good evening to you. You may wonder why a banker is speaking at a gathering of scientists today. Well, the reason is simple. Science, in my opinion, has no boundaries. It has no gender. It is simply exploring and marveling Allah's creation. To quote from the Surah Rahman in the Holy Quran, "Phir tum apne Rabb ki kaun si neamaton ko ठुकराओगे? Then which of your Lord's favors will you both deny?" History is filled with women whose everyday curiosity and ingenuity changed the world. Marie Curie, we just heard about her, once said, "One never notices what has been done, one can only see what remains to be done." And that spirit of relentless quest for improvement has powered women's achievements in research against formidable odds. Let me share a few examples that have inspired me when I was a student of science and mathematics. Katherine Johnson, an African-American mathematician who overcame discrimination to help launch the first man in orbit. Chen Wu, known as the First Lady of Physics, shattered barriers of race and gender in the 1950s, where her Wu experiment showed that in certain nuclear reactions, the universe behaves differently if you flip it like a mirror, a discovery that rewrote modern physics. Then there is Jane Wright, who pioneered modern chemotherapy, transforming cancer treatment methods, the same methods that doctors still rely on today. And of course, we all take pride in Dr. Nargis Mawalwala, a Pakistani-American astrophysicist who has helped detect gravitational waves, opening new windows into the universe and shaping countless women to reach for the stars. Personally, I have been inspired by Barbara McClintock, who spent 40 years alone in a cornfield watching chromosomes dance. The male scientific establishment laughed at her jumping genes until the molecular biology revolution proved her right decades later. In 1983, at the age of 81, she became the only woman to ever win an unshared Nobel Prize in physiology or medicine. Today, every drought-resistant maize variety, every GMO crop that feeds hundreds and millions of people stands on the foundation she built when men dismissed her as an eccentric. McClintock's story is a reminder that scientific breakthroughs often begin far from the spotlight, sometimes in a cornfield, sometimes in the hands of women who work quietly, reshaping the world. My own journey has given me a front row seat to how women agronomists, most of them from rural communities, are leading transformation in Pakistan's fields, villages, and scientific institutions. At HBL, which is Habib Bank Limited, we are currently expanding an innovative set of new services in the field of agriculture. Please allow me to share the work we are doing because I believe we are all serving the same larger purpose. As you know, HBL is part of the Akhan Fund for Economic Development, which is the for-profit side. But there are commonalities of shared values where we believe that service to the communities is an essential part and women empowerment is a very heavy part of our agenda. HBL Zarai is our ambitious effort to transform agriculture in Pakistan. We employ several women agronomists who are acting as drivers of progress at every level. These remarkable women are working side by side with farmers in collaborative effort to incorporate traditional methods with the latest scientific thinking on how to conserve water, better use seed varieties, reduce crop losses, and ultimately secure reliable food supply. Through their expertise and local knowledge, post-harvest losses in many of the communities has reduced by almost 20%. Crop yields have gone up, and girls growing up in these villages are seeing new role model scientists who look just like them. In Pakistan's agrarian landscape, HBL's bottom-up approach to bridging the gap that once seemed impossible. We support women agronomists with resources, training, technology, and most importantly, by empowering them to lead. Our Zarai Deras, Deras are where agriculture sort of hubs in local language are called deras. Our HBL Zarai Deras program provides village-level advisory for farmers, where our women scientists conduct training workshops, demonstrate modern machinery, diagnose plant disease, and guide financial well-being. We also support women farmers directly to build capacity. On the supply side, we guarantee direct payments for harvests. We also provide access to credit, training, and markets so that women farmers can become entrepreneurs and not just wage earners. This is not just progress. This is a quiet revolution. When women take the lead, whole families and communities benefit. Studies show that women invest up to 90% of their earnings in nutrition, health, education, and business for their families, breaking the cycle of poverty and creating a foundation for future growth. Whether it is climate-adapted crops that someday will feed 11 billion people on this planet, as projected, gene therapies that will end inherited diseases, or artificial intelligence that serves humanity instead of exploiting it, the next generation, inshallah, will not be built by the same narrow demography. It will be built by daughters of farmers in Bangladesh who understand rice and resilience, by girls in Nairobi who code under the solar lamps, by young women agronomists who understand science of seeds, by women who refuse to accept that the universe was ever meant to be decoded only by men. Supporting women. Thank you. Supporting women in science is not about fixing deficit. It is about cultivating the talent and brilliance that the society too often overlooks. It is about removing systemic barriers that are unjust. Every woman in this room, and I mean all of you sitting here, who have faced biases and stood firm, every woman who has juggled lab work with family is advancing not just knowledge, but justice and opportunity. As I see the research of the conference in the coming days, I see that much of the work is going to be focused on the plight of the most vulnerable populations, women, children, and communities that suffer chronic poverty. This is not abstract research. This is science with real-world consequences for millions of people. This is the kind of work that changes lives, and it is being led by many of the women in this room. Alhamdulillah. I thank all the women scientists and professionals present here today, and those who are not present here today, for the work that you all do. Thank you for making science relevant, practical, and life-changing. You're building food security, driving innovation, eradicating diseases, driving innovation, and, above all, inspiring hope. As Nobel laureate Baba McClintock once said, if you know you are on the right track, if you have this inner knowledge, then nobody can turn you off, no matter what they say. The best science is not just about discovering, it is about serving everyone. And when women lead, humanity truly thrives. I will step back now and let women leaders in science speak for themselves through a short film that I'd like to share with all of you. Please.
Throughout history, women have been the quiet architects of progress, nurturing knowledge, guiding discovery, shaping civilizations. From Fatma al-Fihri, who founded the world's first university in 9th century Morocco, to Maryam al-Ijliya, the 10th century genius whose innovative astrolabes guided countless scholars in navigating the heavens, to the brilliant mathematicians and Renaissance women of Abbasid Baghdad, Sutaita al-Mahamili and Fatma al-Kindi. Their legacy reminds us, women in science is not a new idea. It is the continuation of a journey built upon perseverance, courage, vision, and service to humanity. Today, Dr. Nargis Mawalwala, raised in Karachi, is an award-winning physicist, a pioneer in the detection of gravitational waves and quantum measurement science, ripples in space-time predicted by Einstein. Her work opens a new window onto the universe, inspiring countless young women to reach for the stars. Barbara McClintock spent 40 years alone in a cornfield, watching chromosomes dance. Mocked by the male scientific establishment for her jumping genes, she was finally proven right, and at 81 became the only woman to win an unshared Nobel Prize in physiology or medicine. Today, every drought-resistant maize variety, every GMO crop that feeds hundreds of millions, stands on the foundation she built. Women the world over are leading scientific innovations that tackle the defining challenges of our age, from theoretical physics to climate change, clean energy, and global health. But behind every achievement, there are battles we do not always see. Dr. Zunaira Afzal, a professor of biotechnology and genetics, is pioneering research in Pakistan on how genetic engineering can make food crops more resilient against disease. She is training a new generation of women agronomists to go out in the field and work with farmers.
Agriculture में most of the farmers, जो हमारे ज़्यादा farmers हैं field में farm owners हैं, they are male. तो girls they feel intimidating. Like वो जब field में जाती हैं as an extension officer or as an agriculture officer, तो उनके लिए थोड़ा सा intimidating है.
Professor Bushra Sadia, an expert in genetics and plant breeding, works to support both women scientists and women farmers in Pakistan.
We have 68% workforce of female workers in agriculture, but they face different challenges. They are working long hours, but they are paid less as compared to male workers. Also, if they want to start business, they are unable to do so because they don't have land on their names, so that's why they cannot get any credit.
Across Pakistan, a new chapter in science is being written, beyond the lab, in the fields of maize and wheat. Pakistani women in agricultural sciences are merging tradition with technology, redefining how we grow our food, how we protect our crops, and how we sustain our land. Through the support of institutions like HBL Zarai Services, this potential is being nurtured. Khadija's story shows what happens when opportunity meets courage. Born in a small village near Burewala, Khadija dared to dream beyond the boundaries of her surroundings. She studied hard, earned her bachelor's and then her master's degrees at the University of Agriculture, Faisalabad, and became an expert in scientific farming techniques. She returned home with knowledge and joined HBL Zarai. Then came a choice: move alone to Sahiwal for a new role, or stay where it was safe and familiar. She chose growth. She faced the silence of lonely nights, the weight of expectations, and the challenge of being a woman working shoulder to shoulder with men in the field. Supported by a platform that believed in her, she forged ahead. Today, Khadija serves as an agronomist at HBL Zarai Services, confident, capable, unshakable. Khadija's journey is not just her own. It is proof that when institutions invest in and support women in science, entire communities grow, harvests improve, and the future becomes more secure for everyone. The obstacles faced by women in science are not small. They are deep, structural barriers, and every day a woman somewhere, somehow breaks through them. Different worlds, different disciplines, but the same truths echo across the spectrum of the remarkable women leading scientific research in Pakistan. You are not held back by your talent. You are held back by barriers you did not build.
My advice to young women who are pursuing careers that are demanding is to begin from the very beginning to ask a lot of questions. Learn to make your own choices and not just be a follower. which is something that our society likes us to be like. You know, we are told what to do a lot of times.
It's important to find a mentor, to know what they do and to engage with them, because communication is key. Often we don't reach out sufficiently and we're unable to communicate our interests and to learn more about others in that area. And it is through communication, by interacting with people, that you can expand your network and therefore try and expand your horizons and try and find the best fit for your own career progression.
I think you're capable and you should follow your heart. Find a supportive network, whether that's in your family or friends, and go do it.
If they want to jump into this field, जो कि हमारी ज़रूरत है, पाकिस्तान की तरक्की के लिए इस वक्त हमें मर्दों के शाना बशाना चलने की ज़रूरत है, और अगर वो फील्ड में जंप करना चाहती हैं तो उनके लिए बहुत सारी अपॉर्चुनिटीज़ हैं. We just need to educate them. We just need to explore the opportunities with them. So then sky is the limit.
To every young woman listening, your curiosity is valid, your questions are powerful, your dreams are needed. Women are rising in laboratories, in hospitals, in classrooms, and in the fields that feed us. Their journeys are full of challenges, yes, but also filled with wisdom and hope. The Sustainable Development Goals remind us true progress must be inclusive. Supporting women in science doesn't advance just one goal, it advances them all. Quality education, gender equality, innovation, climate action, and stronger, more just institutions. When women in science are supported, communities grow healthier, economies grow stronger, and nations grow wiser. HBL, Beyond Banking, Sowing Change.
Thank you. We thought this would be a good opportunity to introduce our contribution in the world of science, which is a bottom-up approach where we go to rural areas and work with women who don't necessarily make it to the cities or to large institutions, but they have the capacity and the capability to become scientists and prove that they can make a difference in the country. Pakistan today needs food. Food security is critical for us, and these women are playing an amazing role. And I thought this was one way to show you. I'm truly grateful, Honorable Dr. Zulfikar Bhutta, for giving me this opportunity to speak. Thank you very much, Dr. Suleiman, for insisting that I come and speak, although I was quite hesitant because I knew that this room would be filled with scientists, ustads, and it becomes a bit overwhelming to present something in front of such a notable audience. And I'd like to pay a tribute to Dr. Hassan for your amazing work that you've done, and of course to Dr. Alai for the presentation that you made. I think these are remarkable examples for us to look and follow. I'd like to thank the audience for also listening to this presentation. I wish you the best of luck. I know that some of you will make it to the stars. Those that don't, you will make a difference in this world. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I would now like to welcome Mr. President Suleiman Shahabuddin and Dr. Bhutta for the token of appreciation, and Mr. Elana. Okay.
And just for all of you to know that those who helped me prepare for today, the film and the presentation, were all women. And they're all in this room. So a tribute to them. Thank you very much. Thank you.
I would now like to request Ms. Tasneem Asin to come on the stage to receive the token of appreciation. Please stay on the stage. Thank you, Tasneem Asin. Now I would like to request our second keynote speaker, Dr. Anjum Halai, to please come on the stage and receive the token of appreciation. Thank you, President Dr. Bhutta. Now I would like to welcome Dr. Salim Virani on the stage for the concluding remarks.
Good evening and Assalamu alaikum, everyone. So I have a very difficult task, and it's difficult for two reasons. One is that you heard all the great stuff from our university leadership, the chief guest, the two amazing keynotes we had. That's one problem I face. And second is the more severe problem, which is that I'm the only person standing between you and your dinner. So those are the two reasons I have to be pithy. So first of all, I really wanted to congratulate all the women in the audience who are sitting, those who've been part of these cohorts that have done so much amazing work. Congratulations, bravo, and we're just truly proud of you. Mr. Sultan Alana, President Suleiman, Provost Tania Bubala, our entire university leadership, Dr. Bhutta, it is an amazing initiative. We all know how important this is. You all heard the numbers, going by whichever statistic you look at, about 30 to 40% of the researchers in the world are women, which is not enough. It has improved, but it has not gotten to a point where we can call it gender equity. So I only have 3 points. I'm not going to talk about everything I wrote here, but I think there are 3 points I wanted to make, and then I will disappear so you can all have your dinner and enjoy it. First is that, this is not just a feel-good thing to have women being part of science. It's because it improves the quality of science, right? Diversity, as one would say, is not cosmetic. Having women be part of this, it changes the science. It shapes what we notice, the perspectives that they bring, what we question, and what we choose to solve. And I think for all of these reasons, women need to be part of science. And I think that's one important thing. It's not just, it's a feel-good thing. It actually improves the quality of the science as well. The second, I think, point that I wanted to make sure I highlighted is that group of women that this project targets, which is early to mid-career. We all talked about that we lose a lot of people on the way, but this is that segment that has that multiplier effect, right? If you actually get that piece right, early and mid-career researchers, then everything in terms of academic and research sustainability for a university, for a community, for a country would work. So that's what I wanted to highlight, that it's extremely important that that segment is also targeted. Third, I wanted to take this discussion, and I think Chairman Sultan Alana talked about that a little bit in the video and his message as well. If we look at our university, 2/3 of our students are women, 50% of our faculty members are women, and about 50 to 55% of our research grant recipients are women as well. So that's important. That's important, but there's one more statistic that I asked our HR team a few weeks back because we wanted to make it part of our research report, which is that when we actually receive these grants and we hire our staff in the community to carry out that research, how many people do we actually hire? And then how many of them are women? And we just received these numbers a week ago. And it's very interesting that if you look at the year 2024, 2025, Kenya and Pakistan, we actually hired 10,000 research staff in the community, all across Pakistan and in all of Kenya. And if you look at those, in Pakistan, 51% of that staff is women, and in Kenya, about 59% of that is women as well. The reason I mention this is that when we look at this concept of equity related to research, we should also look at it in terms of the livelihood that that research creates in terms of equity as well. I think we are there, but there's a lot more that we can do as a university. And I think this concept of best in the world versus best for the world has been discussed in the past. I think this university has done some amazing things to be best in our region, and hopefully someday will be best in the world, but we do a great job. But I think how do we take these things outside of these pink walls of our institution to make it best for the world, for the communities that we have been entrusted by our chancellors, I would use the word, to serve, and not just those communities, but those nations and those regions. And I think if we as a university don't do that, nobody else will. So those were the 3 points really I had. And you know, the more we look at this, we realize that talent is equally distributed, but opportunity is not. And I think that's what we need to do as a university, that potential becomes impact and it does not disappear into silence. So, you know, we've talked about there's no reason for us to prove anything. I think the university has proven that. The idea is not to prove, but to improve, right? That's really the message I have. And again, when we invest in women researchers, we do more than to just correct an imbalance. We invest in better questions, better solutions, and a stronger future for science itself. It is not just the right thing to do. I truly believe that it is the smartest thing to do for us as a university. With that, I think I thank you all. Thanks to all the women. As we were discussing this, I was actually thinking of all the mentors I had in my life, and quite a few of those influential ones were women. And the distinct difference was I had very strong project mentors who were both men and women. But some of the strongest mentors I had who basically talked about emotional intelligence, soft skills, you know, those who would turn their laptop off, put their phone away, and ask you, what are the challenges you're facing in your life and how you basically can take care of conflict and all of those things, were all taught by women mentors. So I wanted to just thank all of those women mentors of mine. A lot of them are, of course, in US, but they played a very major role in what I do as well as a vice provost research for this university as well. So with that, I wanted to thank Dr. Bhutta and the team for putting such an amazing program together. Thanks to all the women who are educators, researchers, administrators, who play a significant role for all of us in the way we grow, not just the science, but hopefully our communities and our nations as well. So thank you all and enjoy your dinner.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, this concludes the inaugural day for the Supporting Women in Science Conference. Dinner is now served. We look forward welcoming you again tomorrow for an engaging and impactful day. It's at 9 o'clock, so please be on time. Thank you.